Coming to you from one of Mayor Bill de Blasio's quarantine checkpoints, I'm RJ Balde, and this is the TRICHOMES Hashitout podcast. On this show, we feature conversations about trending cannabis topics. We also bring in industry insiders and influencers to discuss their point of view. In this episode, I'll be talking to Warren Bobrow about his journey from a bartender and mixologist to food journalist, Forbes contributor, and cannabis writer. We'll also talk about the lasting impacts of the coronavirus pandemic on cannabis, his advice for those who want to follow a similar or multiple career paths, and much more. Without further ado, let's hash it out. I am joined today by Warren Bobrow, Forbes contributor, chef, cannabis writer, author, mixologist, alchemist, and cocktail whisperer. Welcome to the show, Warren. It's great to have you here.
Hey, it's fun to be here. We were talking just before you asked me if I've done any podcasts before. No, I haven't.
Oh, got it. Well, I'm glad that we could be your first experience here. I hope it's a pleasant one.
But they say that I have a great face for radio, so you're ahead of the game that way.
I love it. Same here. I get the same sort of critiques every now and again, or compliments. You know what? I'll take it as a compliment. Sure.
It should be a compliment because
why not?
In a unique medium. When I worked in television and in filmmaking back in the 1970s, my family was in the motion picture industry. My grandfather was a large shareholder of Columbia Pictures and the vice chairman of the board, and that allowed me to get a job in the industry. And I worked as a loader. I loaded film magazines and made television commercials, and we shot them all on film, on 35 millimeter film. So they were really gorgeous. So a 30-second commercial, they probably spent 6 months building. And it was enough to make me never want to work in film again, even though I do have a degree in film. But that was a 4-year wasted venture.
Yeah, if I remember this correctly, you worked at both WNET 13 and WPIX 11 in New York?
In New York City, there are television stations as an engineer. And I did camera, I did editing. I learned how to do all this stuff on the job, but I also have a degree in it. But it's so funny when I look back on life, and I'm 59 now, so it's been a couple of years since I've been in college, and I look back on it and I say, what did I do? Well, the weed was pretty good, and there might have been some psychedelics in there. I can't comment.
And you also worked at the former PBS station in Portland, Maine, too. Is that right?
Yes, I did. I was an engineer there, and I saw all of Maine. I grew up in between New Jersey and New England, sometimes up in Maine, and I thought I knew the state pretty well. But when I went to work for Maine Public Broadcasting, I learned that there are towns that don't have names; they have numbers.
Oh, interesting.
You get like a rustic county up into potato country, and there aren't any people, and there aren't any town names either. There's just a lot of potatoes, and the potatoes are the best in the world. And in fact, it's so nice to be able to eat a Maine potato in Maine, because here in New Jersey, I'm more likely to get them from out west.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting.
So, first, I looked to flavor, but I digress because I wasn't there to eat food at that time. I was so poor, I didn't have a whole lot. I was working, after I left the television business, they automated the station, so I lost my opportunity of working, and I couldn't support myself to come back to New York City. It just wasn't happening at that time. There weren't any jobs, and I found myself without a job in Maine in the wintertime, and I became a dishwasher. And I worked my way up from the bottom through great difficulty and a lot of cold nights and empty stomach to realizing that I could make a living, working with my hands. Basically, I grew up on a farm, so I shoveled a lot of, horse shit. So, the idea of cleaning up after other people wasn't so far off the mark for me.
Right.
A need for hospitality that I didn't realize that I knew existed. I was raised in Europe. My dad was an international tax lawyer. We lived large in the 60s and 70s, and by traveling pretty much all over the world and living in a style that I'd never be able to afford to do today because I just don't make enough money. But
Right.
we had different opportunities then, and it really changed the way that I eat and that I drink. And I always say my taste far exceeds my pocketbook, but my favorite glass of wine is the one that belongs to others, because
Mm.
I never know, if mine is the best. Probably not, but I'm sure that the best is out there somewhere, and someone took the time to earn the money to afford that, and I'd love to be there to enjoy it with them.
Totally. So, when you worked as a dishwasher, what was the most valuable lesson you learned? Was it that humility?
It was humility. Yeah, it was deep,
Mm.
deep humility. But I've gone bankrupt since then, so I've had great lessons in humility since that
Sure.
point.
Yeah, hey. Yeah,
Yeah,
that'll definitely humble you, that's for sure.
yeah, bankrupt, lose first wife, run off. Let's see what else. Lose house. Yeah, lose job. My job that I had for 20 years that I hated
Mhm.
every single day was a drag. That I scrape myself out of bed in the morning to get up to go
Mm.
work to do it again. I was an executive assistant in private banking. It was a soul
Oh.
sucking job, but on the side, I worked as a private chef because I was a certified working chef, ACF trained, Johnson Wales, the whole thing. I did all
Mhm.
this after college, and founded a fresh pasta business in Charleston, South
Yeah.
Carolina. We had Hurricane Hugo in 1989,
Mhm.
and I lost everything. I would have
Mm.
never have come back to New Jersey. I wasn't intending on it. I moved actually down in New Orleans, and then I had
Mhm.
worked as a cook down there, and then moved to Scottsdale, worked as a cook there at the Scottsdale Princess Hotel.
Mhm.
And I ran out of money when they, yet again, when they, closed for the summer. So I moved back east, went cooked at a restaurant called Hotel du Village in New Hope, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Uh, I knew that at that point that I didn't want to be a cook anymore, and I had to pay off the bills that I owed because my dad and grandfather loaned me a sum of money that took me literally 20 years to pay off, and I paid
Oof.
them off in full, and it was about $2.5 million. Took me 20 years.
Damn. But that must have been a massive weight off of your shoulders once you didn't have to worry about that anymore.
It is the motivating factor in why I
Mhm.
work in the cannabis industry today.
Mm.
It is the
Mhm.
motivating factor of what gives me ambition. It is the
Mm.
motivating factor of wanting to do better than they did because I'm not mean.
Yeah, hey, that's the key right there.
I much rather smile when I say that I love what I do, that the person I've become today is incredibly passionate, because it has
Mhm.
not been easy. Anyone who thinks that they know me doesn't know me, because
Totally.
it has not been easy. And I may have had a privileged upbringing, but that's what books are written about. People who
Right.
have privileged upbringings and suddenly find themselves unable to take care of themselves. I
Right.
had to relearn how to take care of myself, and having to do that was an incredible lesson. I actually, when I had been out and writing for a couple of years, and I think it was right around the time that my first book came out in 2013, so it had to have been about
Mhm.
2011, 2012, somewhere in there. I went to a local restaurant up in White House, New Jersey, owned by an interesting conglomerate of individuals, and we clicked really well together. And their bartender, or the head bartender, was a guy named Chris James, who has since, and because of this, become both my mentor and my friend, and taught me everything that I know about being a mixologist and understanding about flavor. And originally I was trained as a chef, as a saucier, so I have an
Yeah.
understanding of what goes where and when, but not necessarily the lessons that you need to know in the cocktail arena. So I remember I went over there to the Rye Island Inn, and I said, I'd like a job as a bartender. And he said, I'm not hiring any bartenders, but my barback didn't show up tonight. And,
Ah,
it's not a job for, I was 50 years old at the time. I just turned 50. So I'm 59
sure.
now. So it was 9 years ago. So it was, yeah, 2011. And,
Uh-huh.
I said, I'll take the job. And he said, it's not an easy job being a barback. It's mostly given to people who are like 18 or 19 or 20 years old, because it's running around all the time. You're doing all the taking out the garbage, you clean the bathrooms, you wait, you do a lot of work. It's like no job you've ever had in your life. And I said to Chris,
Mm-hmm.
I just came out of the corporate world where people treated me, I would say some of them treated me very nicely, but I would say others treated me very, very poorly. Throw it at me, I can take it. They broke me in like 3 days.
Wow, really? Wow.
And I became better because of it.
Hey, yeah, it's a growing experience, right?
It was the winter. I remember I have this metaphor of the winter, and I was taking the trash out, and the garbage bag broke, and it covered me in the evening's garbage and wet liquor, and it was raining ice outside, and I slipped, and I couldn't take it. It was the best thing that ever happened to me.
the best and worst thing, yeah, for sure.
It was a deciding factor in the Warren that I became today at that very moment.
Yeah, that's a really great way to look at things, is that, it's those shitty moments that turn into that manure and that fertilizer to help other things grow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, of course. And at the time, I didn't see it that way because I was wearing this really expensive Austrian boiled wool jacket that my ex-wife gave to me from, she sold Geiger in her store. So the metaphor was that I couldn't throw it out. I couldn't stand the idea of throwing it out. But the fact was, once it was just sopping in liquor juice and glass and everything else, I had to throw it out. And it was so, yeah.
Damn, man. Damn. That's wild.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that you worked in Charleston, South Carolina, in 1898. Yeah, Old Charleston Pasta is what it was called?
1990. Let's see, where was I there? I was in Charleston. 1989 is when we had the hurricane. So I was there from 87, roughly 1987 to 91, thereabouts. Yeah. Because of Hugo, I lost a great business. We didn't do everything right, and I probably was in the business for all the wrong reasons. But the pasta was like nothing that anyone had ever seen before, because we were the first my ex-partner and I were the first manufacturers of fresh pasta in South Carolina. And things didn't always go well between he and I, but at the end of the day, I make the best pasta anyone has ever tasted.
And you can take that to the bank, my friend.
That's more egg yolks than anyone else's pasta. I think in a pound of pasta has something like 30 egg yolks in it. I mean, it's really...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I use the 100% semolina, which the funny thing was, I had I rented a space in the old cigar factory in Charleston, and it had a train siding in it, and the train car showed up to be on. You can't buy semolina grain by the half train car load. You can only buy it by the full train car load. And it was a Sunday when they put the car there, and I knew it was going to be gone by Monday at 4:30, and no one had a forklift to unload the train car. So we did.
Ooh. Shoo.
Got some of the brothers together and got some weed
and knocked it out, man. Knocked it out.
Oh my God. 50-pound
bags. That's wild.
They're 50-pound bags.
Ah, man, that's so wild. That's some bar back work right there.
Yeah, I'm not a strong guy either. It probably is why my back feels so good today, but
Now, the Carolinas are now dealing with Hurricane Isaias. Based on your experience, what can you tell me about the resilience of the people there that you experienced in 1989 when Hurricane Hugo went through?
It was humbling for me, because when I was founding my company and meeting with the insurance people, they said that we haven't had a hurricane around here in 30 years. So I didn't take the hurricane interruption insurance. So let's just say, when you don't have a whole lot, and even those who had grand homes, most of them were not air conditioned. You would air condition your bedroom. You would have ceiling fans, but basically all that did was push around the air that smelled like pluff mud, which is the decaying sea creatures that live in Charleston Harbor. So when the wind is just right, your house smells kind of septic. But everyone kind of understands it, and they say, "Oh, the pluff mud's heavy today." And I was like, "Yeah, it smells like something has just died," because it's the things that, the shrimp and the plankton, and when it sits and bakes in the sun, it has a very unique smell. And anyone who's worked in a restaurant can identify that smell immediately. But down in Charleston, it's called pluff.
Pluff. Pluff. Just based off of the word, I feel like I know what it smells like.
Yeah, so you can imagine what they were doing out at Fort Sumter in the Civil War, and their uniforms were grosgrain wool, so they were sweltering anyway. And the wind came in off the bay, and I'm sure they were probably vomiting because they were so overheated. And then history will be my guide on that one. Things happen for a reason, and in naval warfare, when the wind is just right, the ship don't sail.
True that. Man.
Raised the sails back in the day. What did they use to raise the sails? I'm going to ask you. What did they use to raise the sails?
I'm going to guess rope made out of hemp.
Right, exactly. But what do you think they were smoking in their pipes? Because tobacco was just for the really rich.
Right.
So I think they were smoking cannabis. And it may not have been cannabis like we smoke today, but it probably was closer to the cannabis that's real low THC, high CBD. Yeah. And they probably got it from the indigenous people, from the First Nation people who lived in the Caribbean. Because the original sailors were coming up from the Caribbean, and I learned my family's history, and we came up through the Caribbean. So my matzo balls have nutmeg in
them. Nice.
Yeah, it's a Caribbean ingredient from the Caribbean to New Orleans. I know they lived there in the early part of the 1800s, and I know that my matzo balls are Caribbean scented rather than Eastern European scented.
There you go.
Person, this. So I've had my son in the Oxford Encyclopedia. They thought they was good enough to tell them, so it all worked.
A little seasoning never hurt nobody, man.
We call it lagniappe in New Orleans. You call it's that coating on the back of the spoon, that little extra something, and it doesn't necessarily translate to sweetness or sourness or that umami thing that everyone seems to talk about. What it is that little bit of extra something, and in cooking, when your saucier, as I was trained to be one of those crazy things, when it coats the back of the spoon, that's the lagniappe.
Interesting. Okay. I've never heard that word before.
It's a metaphor. And you New Orleans people out when they say, that's a little lagniappe. And you're like, hey, when did you live in New Orleans?
Nice. Okay, I'll have to keep that in my back pocket on my next trip.
Of course. But yeah, I like to give a little bit extra, something that's not expected.
Yeah, a little something. That's for sure.
That's why you get high ratings,
Yeah. Now, going back to your mixology experience. Now, I think you just mentioned this a bit earlier. You worked as a mixologist in New Jersey for the first licensed distillery since Prohibition. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, it's a rum manufactured distiller, Busted Barrel Rum. I think they're still in business. It'd be nice if they were. They tried really hard.
Nice.
I don't work for them any longer, but I did some rum mixology for them because they kind of just needed direction.
Sure.
And they were fun to work with at the time, and I wish them well.
Nice. How long were you with them for?
Too long. I mean, sorry. It's I don't drink anymore, so I stopped drinking hard liquor in July of 2018 at Tales of the Cocktail. It just didn't take strike to me anymore. I'd been a national brand ambassador for a boutique rum company called the rum is called Maison. I taught a master class of rum at the Moscow Bar Show.
Yeah.
I'm a rum judge for the Ministry of Rum as well as the Rum XP, but I
Hmm.
just don't have a taste for it anymore. And I didn't like the way it was making me feel. And most
Yeah.
of all was the 55 pounds that I don't miss.
Hmm.
I
Huh.
had a small child attached to my hip, and I never looked fat, but I felt fat, and I knew that there was diabetes in my family, and I knew that the drinking may not kill me, but the stuff that they mix in the drinks will. And
Right.
I feel so much better now. It's almost a relief to be able to say that I like a glass of wine with dinner. I love the terroir and the Belgian beers, and the
Mm.
gouzes and the farmhouse ales. But I don't like getting drunk. I'm not interested in that feeling. It doesn't hold any mystique to me any longer. And I
Yeah.
was certainly in the top echelon. My first book, Apothecary Cocktails, was nominated for a Spirited Award at Tales of the Cocktail. I think that's still I haven't been in 2 years, and my books outsell most of the other ones. Where do I get my metrics? From the bookstore itself.
Right.
They called me up at the end in 2019. They said your book sold out in 3 days, and that's the greatest gift and even though I wasn't there, and I went. I think I went to Denver for that one instead of going. Or no, I went to the Emerald Cup. Or Hall of Flowers. That's right. I went to Hall of Flowers. So it wasn't. It was just I wasn't around drunks.
Yeah.
Being around drunks all the time and having to get people drunk, and that was part of my job description, was to
Hmm.
keep people sated.
Yeah.
So don't get me wrong, they were having they come to me for a very specific reason, not because they want to get smashed, but because they want to taste something that'll ruin them for their bartenders.
Right.
Well,
Exactly.
they're getting cheated. Every time a bartender puts ice in a glass, they're cheated. That's why you should always ask for your drinks up, because the ice that they're using are probably quarter cubes, and that's only meant to cheat the guest.
Ooh. Nice insight. Now, do you think that is that like a known thing that bartenders just do anyway, knowing damn well what they're doing?
Why would it be a known thing? They call those cheaters. That's what the ice is called. It's
Oh,
called
really?
cheaters.
Wow.
So when you go to
Interesting.
you say, "Do you have any ice other than cheaters?" The bartender will probably kick you out.
No way. Wow. I'm about to stroll into a bar now with some attitude and be like, y'all have been cheating me.
If they don't put a glass of water down in front of you before they hand you the menu, you should leave.
Ah, okay. Wow. See, I am not abreast in any of this bar etiquette.
Yeah, no, you should read some Gaz Regan books. Gaz
Gotcha.
was my mentor, and he's no longer with us. But in the beverage that I'm working on out in California, a most unique THC infused live resin beverage, I'm going to be using his Reagan's #6 orange bitters to pay homage to him, because we lost him last year. So
Absolutely. Wow. Yeah, I had no idea about any. And well, honestly, I wish I would much rather go to like a cannabis cafe than a bar anyway. So
my God,
I wish.
yeah, of course. But that's why
Yeah.
the drink that I'm working on, it's named Klaus, by the way, after my
Right.
1860 German drinking gnome, who's followed me almost all over the world. He came to Moscow with me. That was a trip. Um, but he's much more content just sitting by me and watching what kind of fun I can get myself into. But the method of my madness is that I created a mocktail, a non-alcoholic cocktail with the finest ingredients that money can buy. I'm using Pickett's extra hot and spicy ginger syrup from
Mm.
my friend Matt Pickett, who I worked very closely with over the years in the liquor industry, and he makes what
Hmm.
I consider the best ginger syrup in the world. So I'm using it.
Mm.
I'm using the Les Vergères Boiron fruit. It's like it's like a puree of fruit. In this case, it's
Ah,
limes
okay.
from French islands. I think they're probably from Martinique, so they have a certain tanginess to them and a lot of oil, a lot
Nice.
of lime oil. It's on a base of very, very finely sparkling water, but it's not one of those silly and stupid and insipid seltzers. So you have to build the ingredients together and have them, encapsulated by a very fine bubble. but it doesn't taste like water at all. I mean, that's it. So if I said it was a seltzer, I'd be lying, because it's not, and I hate that shit. So when I spoke at the Cannabis Drinks Expo, I got up on stage, lead off, the keynote speaker, and they all thought I was going to praise everyone's drinks in the audience. And I looked at them and I said, cannabis drinks suck, because they do. Ooh. They do. I mean, I don't. I could name names, but I'm not going to, because I'm relatively kind in that sense, and I've written about some of the people on the market. But at the end of the day, I'd rather say something nice. But I will say that the drinks suck because if you're going to come out with a product that is in a beer bottle, shouldn't it at least have hops in it?
What would you rather it be packaged in?
A little, a shorty. One of those little chub cans or chub bottles.
Fair enough.
Like a Jenny Cream Ale.
Sure.
I'd love to see it in a Jenny Cream Ale bottle. That would be fun. But I'm all about authenticity, so I'm trying to make it easy. I'm using 2 different types of cocktail bitters. I'm using the lime. I'm using the ginger. It's the other cocktail bitters are from the late and great Joe Fee. I'm using his lemon bitters, and I'm using a touch of not white. It's a rice wine vinegar. Sorry, my mind went blank for a second. No problem. When I was in Moscow teaching at the Moscow bar show, I made cocktails for some pretty heavy hitters up at the top of the FSB building, which is their NSA, their CIA, and so I work for a Russian company, obviously. Otherwise, I'm certainly not getting in that building. Right. But have a cocktail lounge up on the top with a restaurant, and the restaurant food is completely inedible. But at least the bar, I know they're probably sponsored by Diageo, so everything is the best. And they asked me to make them drinks up there, and I did. And I was working for the rum company, but I was also working for a vodka company under that umbrella called Maman, which was a vodka that was distilled in Siberia by women. And I asked, why do women make this vodka? Because the answer was because the men are too drunk to make vodka. So they don't. So that's why they have the women do all the work.
Wow. The men are too busy indulging, are they?
Yeah, indulging. So I met some. I have on my right forearm, I have a tattoo. I have several, but this tattoo is from the world famous cocktail lounge named Employees Only in New York City. And those who know that design, it's like a key or an EO, Employees Only. And I pulled up my sleeve at that place called Chinaya in Moscow, and I had my gnome with me, by the way. I had Klaus with me. Nice. And someone saw that I had an Employees Only tattoo, and he was on the phone to Steve Schneider, who was working in Singapore at the time. He'd opened up an Employees Only there, and they said, hey, there's this guy here, and he's got your tattoo on his arm.
Whoa. Wow.
And I said, is that Steve? And they said, yeah. And I said, tell him Warren says hi. And
wow.
And they did. And it was like, wow, the world came all afresh at that point.
What are the chances? Yeah. What a small world, huh?
Because I would go to mixology places, and I'd want to see what they were working on and the kind of things that they were doing. And when they saw it only, they knew immediately, because that's, in the cocktail mixology world, they've revitalized the classics from the jazz era again.
Yeah.
These opulent 1940s style, really incredible drinks that they're turning out 100 at a time. They're just magicians in the kind of work that they do. And having been, as I said, having been a bar back, I know what goes into that type of work, and it's emotionally and physically grueling. But once you get the hang of it, you can be pretty good and make pretty good money at doing it.
Definitely. And the culture is sort of having a revival too. Like, cocktail culture, speakeasies even, like speakeasies are popping up all over.
So when I was in Moscow, that's basically, the whole thing is all about meeting the right people. And there were individuals that I met from North Vietnam. Now it's all North Vietnam now. It's no longer South Vietnam. But
Right.
these were people who were from, they were from North Vietnam. They were, and they were like superstar bartenders and mixologists. And I watched them work, and I watched the ingredients that they were playing around with. And one of the ingredients they were playing around with was rice wine vinegar. And so that's why I'm building rice wine vinegar into this drink, into this libation, because it first off, it heals your gut. So if you have a sour stomach, the admission of rice wine vinegar takes away that peptic stomach. And it's also really good for digestion. So we go back to my original book, Apothecary Cocktails, where people would go to their apothecary when they had a bellyache or they had worms or they had head lice, whatever, and the apothecarian would make a preparation for them. And in this case, that preparation would have a base of alcohol that was drinkable alcohol that he was probably distilling right there out of grapes or in later years grain. And they would go and they'd call this, early drink a cocktail. So fast forward, I'm in New Orleans doing a book signing at the Pharmacy Museum on Royal Street. And for my book, Bitters and Shrub Syrup Cocktails, which this drink that I'm creating in California is in effect like a shrub, not like a shrubbery, but like a shrub.
Sure.
And they at that time they happened to be having an exhibition of cannabis in the early apothecary going on at the Pharmacy Museum. And at that very moment, I knew what my fourth book was going to be on. And it was the book that made me famous. I don't want to say anything, but it was the book that really propelled my career.
Certainly, yeah. Wow, that's such a colorful journey. You have certainly, your experience and your line of work has taken you to many exciting places.
Yeah, but I was also disowned by my family. They want nothing to do with me. And my dad passed away, and I'd like to say good riddance, and when that's true, because I don't have to have him around to yell at me anymore and to break me and to make me cry in front of him. And he was a true sadist, and he would only be happy when he would break me. And it was like every birthday or at Christmas, we're a blended family, even though we're Jewish, but still there would be a Christmas tree and there'd be a menorah or whatever. And every holiday he would take it upon himself to let's break Warren. And it was sport for him. He really enjoyed it. It was a metaphor for the way that he treated people, but no one was aware of it because I was the only one who he made cry. Everyone else loved him. They thought he was like, the best guy they'd ever met. But I saw him as someone who took what I believe was physical pleasure into breaking me down, and not even for a positive reason. It wasn't like he was trying to make me better. He just kept telling me I was always going to be a failure. Every single time I'd speak to him, and then he'd get out the checkbook and cut me a check for $200 for my birthday.
Damn.
So I've endured all this, this incredible, telling me I'll never be anything, never succeed at anything. I'm going to be a failure because I didn't get into law. I took the LSAT and couldn't get into law school, but who cares? It wasn't going to be my path in life. And he couldn't get it through his head that I didn't want to be a lawyer. And I took a different path, but my brain works in a creative way, not the way that he wanted it to work. And then I get disowned. So, I'm forbidden to see any of I have family on my mom's side, and I haven't seen them in, it's been 14 years. So.
Oh, wow. So to this day, that rift it still exists.
Oh, yeah. I sent my mom, as I said, I haven't seen her in 14 years. I sent her a copy of my first book, Apothecary Cocktails. And she sent it back to me in the same package, but just a new package to show me that she didn't open it.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Wow. So what was your, you mentioned that your father was less than kind, verbally abusive or mentally abusive in a way. What was your mom like?
My mom my mom spent time with her horses.
Ah, okay. Okay. So was she more hands off?
My mom would. My mom had help in the house, so
Got it.
my governess took care of a lot of that basic stuff.
Got it.
And
Got it.
I don't make any apologies for having house staff and servants and all that
Cool.
stuff.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I was the one who was doing all the work anyway. But
Yeah.
but the really, at the end of the day, what it did do for me is I learned how to cook like an old black lady. And I will. They told me down in Charleston when I went into Martha Lou's kitchen, and I said to Martha Lou, "I want please let me come and watch you cook." And she said,
Right.
"Sure, you can watch me cook." And then I said to her, she was given the award from Saveur magazine, as an American treasure of culinary arts, for her
Wow.
fried chicken, and her food is it's so passionate. I mean, it's everything I grew up with. And she asked me to prepare a dish for her that I was truly proud of, and I said, "Well, that would have to be pig intestines, because I do it. I do chitlins like you've never tasted."
Yeah, man.
She said, "Boy, you don't even know what you're talking about."
Yeah, man. Man. Wow.
But what she didn't know is when I was growing up, I used to spend time at the Peppermint, which was a restaurant in East Orange, New Jersey, because the family that raised me up, one of them was a detective in East Orange, and he used to take me down to the Peppermint and let me hang out in the kitchen and watch them cook.
That's
So
what's
when
up.
I finally made the dish for Martha Lou, she said, "I cook like an old black lady," and I said, "That's the greatest compliment that you can give this white Jewish kid from Morristown, New Jersey."
That's right. Yeah, you got to put that on your resume right there.
Yeah, he cooks like an old black lady. Um, I,
That's an endorsement.
I just cook from my soul. I just cook from my hands. I don't do a whole lot to anything, but what I do is simple.
Mm.
So when they gave me those pig intestines, it wasn't that I was going to dive right in and cook them right away. You have to nurture them, and I soak them in buttermilk, changing the buttermilk out every single day for 3 days in the
Mm.
refrigerator. And the first day it's just nasty, and then you have to get in there and clean them, and it's not a pretty picture, but it's part of life. And when you're poor and you don't have a whole lot of money and you're hungry, you'll eat what you have to eat to get by.
Right.
And I call it subsistence eating. And I can take that simple, humble ingredient and make it into something, as we call it in bartending, we call it raising the bar.
Ah, I like that. I like that.
So Lou might have been giving me, smiles on my back, but she doesn't, because I've sent people in over the years, and they always give a smile, and they said, "Yep, we remember him, because he's the one who eat fried pork chops and fish sandwiches."
Yeah. Yes, indeed. I love that. You know, how do you see it then? Because you've had tumultuous experiences in your life, mixed in with these fortunate aspects of your life. You were like you said, your mom had help. You were well to do early on in your life, in your childhood.
I never knew any differently either. I mean, we weren't snobs. They're far from.
Right. Yeah.
Even though I grew up in a Frank Lloyd Wright house designed for my parents, but still, my friends who I grew up with, they had far more than we did. So I never saw it as being upper net worth. All I saw it was that, wow, I grew up with the Merck family, and they drive a 30-year-old station wagon, but they're one of the wealthiest families on earth. And that's the kind of way I grew up. I went to a private school that, in 1972, they took me to see the Grateful Dead,
Nice.
and that was a defining feature of going to Gil St. Bernard's at the time, was to go see the Grateful Dead. I'll never forget it.
That's awesome, man. That is so cool. The Grateful Dead, this is a completely off topic, but you brought them up. The Grateful Dead, they just came out with a shoe collab with Nike. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yes, I saw it. I have to work harder. I have to work harder. That's a little mean, I don't know if I want to put that on my feet. I've been wearing Birkenstocks lately. I hadn't worn those since college.
Yes.
And no one tells, that I love them. I have, from my bartending days, I injured the meniscus in my knee, which is a pretty typical bartender's injury. And
Sure.
anyone who doesn't know it, it can be career ending. I'm running stairs now. It's pretty wild. I went to an orthopedic and he told me, "Oh, you got to get surgery." And I was like, "Fuck no, I'm not getting surgery."
Right.
I didn't. I healed it with stretching and cannabis cream. This is
nice.
Big thing. And I feel stronger today. And the shoes that I wear are incredibly important. I either wear the Nike Air sneakers all the time, and now that it's 100 and some odd degrees outside, I wear Birks, and I probably won't be taking them off. They're really they're not pretty, but what can I say? I'm happy, and I work for myself. What do I have to apologize for?
I've been in the market for some Birks lately, actually, so it's funny that you bring that up.
I got the ones with a padded footbed, so they're a little less harsh. They feel good. They make me feel like I'm a kid again, and I'm far from a kid.
That's good. Those Grateful Dead Nike shoes have like a secret stash pouch too. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I'm sure someone would know about it. So if you were caught wearing it, I would probably say, "Oh, you got something in that secret stash pouch." Yeah, I know about that. That's why I'm caught.
No doubt.
Happening.
Yeah. Plus, I think they collabed with their skate brand Nike SB. So like, I don't know how good those would be for. They're
not good for walking.
Heavy work.
It really hurt my meniscus. I wore for many years the SB Nikes. They're great to look at, but they don't give you any support, and it was really damaging my knee. And I was also wearing Bluntstones, and although they're wonderful to look at, they'll last you a lifetime, but the footbed is pushed down, kind of like your heel is above the front, and it was pushing a lot of pressure on my knee, and I became acutely aware of it.
Yeah. If you're on your feet for that long, man, you start to feel everything.
The shoes that I used to wear when I worked in the restaurant business were Danskos.
Oh, wow.
Clogs, the ones that they make for people who are on their feet in hospitals.
Sure.
Because they have a oil-free sole on them, so you don't skid and break your neck.
Right. Yeah, we don't need any neck breaking.
Those are really incredible. And when you see all the cooks wearing Danskos, you know that they're taking care of their backs, if nothing else.
Definitely. Now, I want to jump back real quick because you mentioned that you hate seltzers. What's your beef with seltzers, man?
I love seltzer that comes from the seltzer manufacturer that puts like pounds per square inch of gas into it. That's seltzer. Pinpoint bubbles. That's seltzer. The stuff that they have. If I wanted to drink seltzer, I'm going to drink that. The fact that it has rapid delivery THC in it and all those artificial ingredients really doesn't do anything for me. I wanted to do something that satisfied my brain as much as it satisfied my heart. And I wanted to make a drink that was part of a subset of beverages that they call RTDs. That means a ready to drink. And essentially what that is, it's a craft mocktail that's ready to drink. You can take it and you can use that as your base level. And I can't legally tell you that this drink will taste better with mezcal or bourbon or Scotch whiskey, but I can, if you get in touch with me and send me a DM, I'll let you know how good it's going to mix in with those things. And you'll have what's called the crossfade. And the crossfade is what I write about in my book, Cannabis Cocktails, Mocktails, and Tonics. It's a unique experience where you get the benefits of the alcohol, which open up all the capillaries in your bloodstream. And the second that THC in live resin form, mind you, hits those open receptors, it's in you. And 3 minutes later, you're high.
Right. That's
what I achieved.
Got it. Okay. So there's a clear distinction there of what the seltzers that you find acceptable. Got you.
Well, they're just basically sparkling water with flavorings added.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I did a reverse engineering. I created a craft mocktail, and then one of the ingredients is mango train wreck live resin, nanotechnology THC, and I'm
Mm.
using 10 milligrams in 8 3/4 ounces. So that's a pretty good amount,
Yeah.
and it retains all the terpenes, so it has that nice tropical flavor, and it really adds in with the lime and the ginger and the lemon and the orange. It becomes very refreshing and fresh, and you want to go, and because of the vinegar, it becomes lip smacking, and you want to go in, you
Mm.
want to have another.
Yeah. Now, is that that's part of your upcoming brand, Klaus?
Yes, that's my brand, Klaus. Yes, I'm
Got
doing
it.
3 SKUs. Um, I'm doing one drink I call the Boss First cocktail or a mocktail.
Hmm.
It's carrot juice, touch of rose water, and I think I put orange bitters in it, and that's it
Nice.
on that one. And then I think we're doing a coffee. I'm not quite sure, but anyway, it's I have 3 SKUs. Oh, the third one is the I can't believe I didn't remember this. The third one is the aptly named 1855 zombie in
Okay.
reverence to Klaus, who came up out of the ground in the
Sure.
1850s. And anyone who's a aficionado of rum would know that in 1855, no one was drinking zombies. But I wanted to give the metaphysical imagination a whirl and say, if you were on a sailing vessel and you had scurvy, how would you get rid of it? And you'd
Mm.
get rid of it by drinking lime juice in there. So this is the drink that the limeys might have drunk on a sailing vessel plying the oceans from one continent to another. They would squeeze lime juice, and the drink that I'm doing is based on a special syrup from New England called Fruitations, and
Okay.
Fruitations is made by a brilliant young lady named Allison Goldberg, and they're all fresh fruit flavors. So this has a tangerine base with a little bit of coconut, a little bit of lemongrass, a little bit of banana, a little bit
Mm.
of orange and lime, and then the bitters and a touch of vinegar. It's going to be fabulous.
Wow, that sounds tasty. Do you have a timeline for when do you think those will be available,
I will
or
tell
not
you
yet?
that the first one, the Mesorol cocktail, which is
Yeah.
or mocktail, that's the one that has the Pickett's ginger and the lime juice. That will be ready and on the shelves by November.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I formulated it last year, and
Yeah.
it takes a couple months to go through food science because they have to do that for the metric that they determine. How do you do a formula? So the food scientists have to figure that out, and I think it's all based on weight instead of
Okay.
volume. So
Got it.
that's something interesting. So we have that to do, and then the company that I'm using to produce the product is out in California near Sacramento. And it's a little company called Space Station, and they
Hmm.
deal in high octane cannabis infused mocktails. Not mocktails, but drinks. They
Got it.
do some really famous ones that I shouldn't be telling you about, but I do know that they.
Top secret.
Well, it's probably I would have to sign an NDA if I disclose them. So I can tell you that they do some really famous brands. It's up to them to tell you which ones.
Got it. Okay. No worries. No worries. So, will those be? Do you know where those will be available? Will it be available starting just in California?
Just in California, yeah. We
Okay.
only have California is the place where it's happening on
Got it.
this venture, and
Got
we're
it.
probably going to release it in Malibu. I think because that's where all the rich folk are at.
Yep.
Where are the rich folk at? Well, you got to go to that part of Florida of California.
That's right.
I want it to be in San Francisco because I truly love San Francisco.
Yeah.
It's that's my personality. I'm less of a Southern California guy than a Northern California guy. I guess it's
I get
just the
that.
laid back Grateful Dead hippie in me.
Yeah. I get
Uh,
that.
And then I would love it to be released in a place like Laguna Beach because, of course, it's all, there's great wealth there.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but see, we're only doing 4,400 cans to start, so I have to be very selective, and and half of those have to go out to influencers. So I'll
Sure.
probably have on the shelf 2,200 cans, and I think they're roughly $14 a can. So whatever it works out to be, it's I'm not going to be making a whole lot of money, but it would be nice to make my money back.
Yeah, totally.
And what would be especially nice is because I'm working with an incubator. It would be nice to be able to show that I truly am passionate about what I do.
I love that. And I think certainly based on your experience, your credentials, and your work history, and your career history, and your career path, that sort of has been the line that has been drawn throughout everything. Is your passion definitely for what you're doing? Definitely shows and translates into what you end up putting out and what you end up promoting, writing, and creating. How difficult is it to, you mentioned that you might have to find yourself giving half of that product away to influencers just for marketing?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. What's that like?
I don't remember. I mean, when I was in Fresh Pasta, I guess we brought Fresh Pasta by to all the restaurants and said, "Here, play with this. If you like it,
Yeah.
you can have it. And if you use it, tell us how you liked it, and then we'll give you more."
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of thing. I have such a level of trust in me at this point from writing about the little guys in our business of cannabis, and
Mm-hmm.
little guys and little girls mostly, guys
Mm-hmm.
and girls, and guys, women and men, and all sorts of people.
Sure.
And it was very profound to be trusted by and trusted in. And that's something that you can't buy. You can't buy someone's trust, and you can't buy you can buy their influence, but you can't buy their likes. You can't get them to.
Yes.
And I always say, if you're going to like me, you're going to like me, and if you're not, you're probably not going to. But I hope that you do, because I think you can get a lot further in life by liking people as opposed to not liking people. And I'm not looking for everyone to be my best friend, but I want to be able to show my personality through my drinks. And if I can give them something that they haven't tasted but they like it, then I'm a success.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that's a good mission statement, to open up people's minds to new experiences.
Definitely. I mean, that's what my grandfather, my mom's father, did that, and he did it so incredibly well. I mean, he manufactured over-the-counter pharmaceuticals like Geritol and Serotan, Sominex, and he basically sold products that were snake oil. And it's funny, there's a lot of irony in that for me, because the FDA and the FTC came to him and they said, "Mr. Rosenhaus, we don't want you selling these products anymore because they don't do anything."
Wow.
Yeah, so it sort of changed the conversation around the family dining room table on Saturday night.
I'm sure.
But it actually forced him into other businesses and in another way of life, and I could never fault him for that. And I always said I inherited his brains, not his pocketbook. I wish I had inherited his pocketbook, but I don't think I would have been a good receptor of that one. But I'm very happy to say that I inherited his brains.
Well, thank him for that then. We thank you for the brains. Now, I mentioned that passion is certainly a line that can be drawn through your experience. Another thing that I've noticed can be drawn, a line that can be drawn through your experience, is that you have found your way either on the cutting edge of things, or you find yourself being the first or the only to something very often in your career. I know that in 2012, you attended France's national food festival, La Fête de la Gastronomie, and you were the only food journalist from the United States there. Is that right?
Yes, I was. It was what a great thing. And there's this whole backstory in it.
Sure.
Because I worked as a chef and worked around fine ingredients for years. It was years before when I worked in Maine. I used to work and cook with a lot of lobsters, and it basically was 10 years before I ate lobsters again. One of the
Mm-hmm.
other ingredients that I fortunately or unfortunately had the opportunity to working with were black and white truffles. So when I was in
Ooh.
Bergen, it was truffle season. I can't
Ah.
stand the things. When I smell them, I want to vomit. It smells like 30 feet, and those all the worst things come out of my mouth when I'm surrounded by truffles. Everyone around me is going, "Ooh, white truffles, black truffles, freshly gathered, shaved on my scrambled eggs," and I was like, "Keep those things away from me."
Wow. Wow. That's a hot take right there, my friend.
I drank some fabulous wines. I drank simple wines that in France you would be served them in ceramic jugs, and that's what they taught me to drink when I was in Burgundy. Anyone can
Wow.
drink the expensive stuff, but you have to have a pocketbook filled to afford it. But what I would
Sure.
were the wines that the farmers were drinking, and there were these little wines they call Petit Chablis, and it
Mm-hmm.
means little Chablis, or whatever. It's just a farmer's wine,
Sure.
and aligoté. I drank a ton of aligoté, but the stuff that I really wanted to drink was the stuff that was served in the ceramic jugs, and that was the greatest wine in the world as far as I'm concerned.
Damn. I love that. That is awesome. How long were you there for?
I was there for a couple weeks, and it
Couple
was kind
weeks.
of strange for me because I'd never taken a tour before. I'd
Okay.
never been on a tour. We didn't travel that way. When I went to Europe, we would go for a month or two, and my dad, as a rule, would bring a Mercedes back to the United States gray market every year, and he'd drive it around for the year and then sell it. And we'd drive it for 1 or 2 months in Europe, and then he'd have it sent back. And that didn't seem
Nice.
like such a big deal because, again, where I grew up in New Jersey, many people did that. They call it European delivery. You go over and you drive it in Europe for a month or two, and then you drive it to the dock and they pack it up in a box and send it to New York City. And
Mm.
that's something that he did. So we always had a nice European road vehicle to drive around Europe in. And so when I got to the Pet Gastronomique, and we're in Paris, and suddenly there are tour buses that I'm supposed to get on with people with little flags waving them. Follow the flags so you don't lose the. I was like, what
Uh,
the hell? I speak the language un peu, and I can get along without much help. But a tour
right.
bus, I've never been on a tour bus. How would I? I hope
Huh.
no one sees me.
Yeah.
But we
Yeah.
we ate well. We did. There was
Nice.
only a meal that was suspect, and it was in Paris, and it was at the top of the, I don't know, whatever their modern super skyscraper is. There's a restaurant at the top, and the food is just inedible. It's absolutely
Really?
inedible. I I don't get food poisoning easily because at the time I was reviewing restaurants for New Jersey Monthly, and I'd
Uh-huh.
get food poisoning regularly, so my stomach was getting stronger. And
Yeah.
this, I was just so ill. And then I got on this bus, and all I smelled were diesel fumes, and it would move back and forth. And lunch. I saw lunch twice.
Yuck. Oh
Yeah,
man.
it wasn't good. So, but my
Bummer.
favorite meal of that trip
Yeah.
was actually in Dijon, and
Okay.
I was allowed to order what I wanted, and all I really wanted was a ham and cheese on baguette with cornichon and Dijon mustard,
Mm.
and that
Mm.
was, and they put a little bit of butter on one side and the Dijon on the other,
Mm.
and that, for a simple sandwich, was France encapsulated in my hand.
Mm. That made my mouth water just listening to that. That sounds really good right now. So, have you made it your intention throughout your career to seek opportunities where you'd be the first or only to something, or has it just sort of happened that way throughout your life?
It's just sort of happened that way. I never
I
saw
love
it. In
that.
fact, I never really wanted the attention in the first place.
Oh, really?
Hmm. Because I was made,
Interesting.
as I said, I was made to feel deficient.
Right.
There's nothing
Right.
wrong with it. My parents were really adept at that. I think they took a strange pleasure in that. And I don't think that my dad's gone now, but he definitely took pleasure in it. And there was a lawyer who had an office right next to his office in Morristown, and I guess the acoustics were that he couldn't hear everything that was said in her office, but she could hear everything that was said in his. And after he died, she called me to her office and said, "I'm so sorry for the way he treated you over the past 20 years."
Wow.
Because
So she
couldn't say anything because every conversation that he had, thinking that it was privileged, she heard.
Oh,
So,
wow. Damn.
So it was really, really heavy stuff.
Damn. So what was that adjustment like? Now that you have you've done successful things in your career, people know your name, people know your work. How do you deal with that recognition?
But they did in liquor too. I mean, I would go down to New Orleans, cocktail, and I wanted to have those little clickers where someone says, "Are you so and so?" Click. "Are you so and so?" Click. "Are you?" I would have done it like 100 times during the day. It was details, but and I do have a distinctive look, but that's not it. I had to have been doing something right. So in weed, it's the counterculture, and I'm almost not sure I want to have the attention. And here in New Jersey, no one knows me, and I'm very happy about that because cannabis is still illegal. It's not legal here, and even though I have a medical prescription for medical cannabis here in New Jersey, I don't like to smoke it in the street. I don't want the attention. I don't want to be in the. I don't want the local police to say, "Oh, there's that guy. We're gonna harass him, or we're gonna check his car to make sure he doesn't have weed in it," or I just don't want that attention. And out in California is perfectly fine because there is no stigma because the guy next to you probably has 30 pounds in his back seat and a bunch of plants. No one cares. But here, it's a big deal because it's a big moneymaker for them because they can see your stuff. They can take your car. They can take your house. It's a huge moneymaker. I wonder what they're going to do to cover that because cannabis, there are more people who get arrested for cannabis in New Jersey than do for jaywalking.
Damn.
It's sad. It's true. And it's just because of what it is here. This part of New Jersey has always been conservative. It's not going any other way. It's not going to be any other way. Those people have been here since the 1600s. Their offspring they still have what they call freeholders here. Do you know what a freeholder is? I mean,
I don't.
It's like an overseer. It goes back to the Middle Ages. And the freeholders were the ones who had the power. It wasn't the king. I mean, the king certainly was the power getter, but the king would employ freeholders to have power over the people. And that's what we have here in Morris County and Somerset County and Hunterdon County. They have freeholders. And those are the ones who decide, we have a governor. Wow. The governor is powerless because something they call home rule. And that's what we have here, home rule. And it doesn't matter what the governor says. It's what the local freeholders say because they hold the purse strings.
Interesting. Now, how are those freeholders appointed? Are they voted?
They're voted and they have a very long term.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they are definitely political. Here in Morris County, I think there's like 9 of them, and I think 7 of them are Republicans. The 2 Democrats, I'm really surprised that they were able to get in at all. Because as I said, these were essentially what they call Tories. And the Tories came from England, and they didn't come from England for religious freedom. They came from England to make money. And it was good, and they never left. So my ex-wife, my first wife's family, were Tories. Her ancestral grandfather was a British general, and he didn't come here to escape for religious freedom. He came here to make money.
Wow. That is so interesting.
It's in the family history. I mean, she was DAR, so it's all written down. I
Wow.
didn't pick her for that reason. I'm not quite sure why I picked her, but it wasn't for that reason. I mean, it was nice to, And then when I found out in later years that my family had been in the South longer than, that. So that's another dark secret. But anyway.
Wow. That's a lot of history to reckon with, for sure.
It is, but all I could do, it wasn't going to put food on the table. What I really had to do was turn it into a story that made people intrigued and say, hey, this guy has a story to tell, and he does it in cocktails or he does it in food. As I said, I'm a trained chef. I cook simple dishes, simply prepared. Good dishes, simply prepared with love. That's what I say. Great ingredients, simply prepared with love.
I love that. Copyright that before like Olive Garden takes it or something. So personally for you, why is it important for you to share your journey with those who might be willing to listen or are looking for some advice? And for those who are looking for advice, what would you give to them if they were looking to more or less follow your career path or branch into multiple career paths like you have?
I always say be passionate. Find out. One of the questions I ask in my Forbes Q&A is, what is your passion? So that's the first thing you should ask yourself. What is your passion? May of 2009, I lost my corporate job. And that was the last time I worked for the man. I've had jobs. I've been fired from jobs since then. But that was the last time that I wasn't following my passion. Everything that I've done after that point, I'm living my best dream because I'm not a secretary in a bank. Anything I do is better. Even pumping gas would be better than that. So I take every day that I'm doing what I'm doing as a gift because it is a gift. Because just being able to survive through this pandemic is a gift. And if I continue to do what I do with a smile on my face and hopefully enlighten others, then I'm also the recipient of that gift. And it's my responsibility to share that in some way and help others in some way. I can't sit idly by and just sit, and just sit and say the world is going to come to me. No, you have to go out and get it. And you have to get it in a nice way that doesn't make people think that they're being used to get to the next step. The place that I ultimately want to be is in an inclusive place, not an exclusive place.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, that's why they call it the present, because it's a gift.
Well, yeah, but I also think back to something even more intimate, and that's when, love him or hate him, my father did teach me some intriguing lessons, and one of them was that you can't please all the people all the time. And I remember that my realization of this was when he tried to join Springbrook Country Club in Morristown, New Jersey, and they turned him down because he was Jewish. Now, we're not religious, and you couldn't tell, we're not Semitic looking. We look like anyone else. But they knew that he was Jewish, and they wouldn't let him in. And I knew that at that point that I would never play golf because I never wanted to have anyone tell me that I didn't belong. And B, that anything I did, people would be asking me to be a member. So it all worked out in the end. But I remember the effect it had on him, and I remember it was the only time I only saw him cry twice, and that was one of the only times.
Wow. Yeah, that's tough. So you did get to see you did have moments where you saw the humanity in him.
Oh yeah, but he was also stealing like $250,000 a year.
Oh, so okay. All right. Okay.
A way to making me feel guilty for his transgressions, and I wouldn't have known about it until after he died. I mean, because I got not me directly, but the estate got a bill from the IRS for a large number.
Damn.
Yeah, because he'd been stealing all along, and he never paid taxes on it.
Ooh.
Yeah, from my grandmother, his mom. So
that's tough. That is tough.
So there goes the trust issue right there.
Right.
That,
exactly.
I was hoping that I could have trusted him, but really at the end of the day, what he was doing was stealing. That's why he got so upset at me, because he felt so guilty.
Now, you mentioned that you one of your goals is to create an inclusive environment rather than an exclusive environment,
Yes.
to bring people in,
Yes.
Now, I was looking at your Instagram the other day, and I saw that a few days, or maybe like last week or a week or so ago now, you shared a review from July of one of your books, which blamed the few negative reviews on, quote, jealous entities who envy your fearlessness for covering this content at a time where much of the country is still rather infantile in its perception of cannabis. So how do you respond to those negative comments or that negative criticism?
Well, it's hard. I mean, that was actually written by my friend Robert Sickler, and he asked me what the hardest thing was about releasing cannabis cocktails, mocktails, and tonics. And I think the hardest thing was the criticism that I've received. I've had a lot of negative criticism, and people have gone out of their way to really, I wouldn't outwardly say slander me, but they definitely would have. I'd like to say that there was definitely some libel in there, and
Gotcha.
as I said, not everyone's going to like me, but really, at the end of the day, I don't have any ill will towards these individuals that wrote the reviews against me. I just wish that they'd do it themselves, and if they feel that they can do it better, more power to them. Let them do it. But I can't stop them from doing it. But I feel that in life, that when you build people up, it gives them much more chance to do better in the future rather than breaking them down. And that individual who wrote the review, that was 3,000 or so words, was a takedown. He released it just before the Christmas season, the first year the book came out, and it effectively killed my sales on both Barnes & Noble and on Amazon where it was posted. So I'm on the 9th printing right now, but I probably would be on the 30th printing if it wasn't for the individual's actions.
Damn. Do you think that was malicious timing or?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because the next time there was a malicious timing was from a well-known spirits magazine, which will remain nameless.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that I was bad and dangerous.
Bad and dangerous. Wow.
Yeah.
What sort of dangers did they cite that they thought you were bringing upon them?
I work in cannabis and in liquor, and that's dangerous.
Yeah. Oh, man, God forbid.
God forbid, yeah. Dangerous.
Wow.
Yeah,
interesting.
Bad. Dangerous, bad.
Yeah. Well, I disagree with them. I think that what you're doing is incredibly exciting, and there needs to be more of it, I think, but done the right way. Like you said, there are a lot of companies out there and a lot of businesses that really cut corners and don't have the passion. They don't have that passionate mission attached to their goals, and in the long run, that shows. Passion is really what helps sustain people, and
Yes.
The lack thereof shows itself sooner or later. That's for sure.
It does, because I think what it does is it raises us from just being eaters to imbibers.
I love that. I love that.
I think where you go further is you just to fully live life, you have to do more than just eat.
Yeah, it's not just about consuming, for sure.
Exactly.
It's about the nutrients that you get from what you consume. No doubt.
And also not only what it does for your body, but what it does for your mind. And that's what I always say. It's anyone, as I said, anyone can eat, but to live, you have to truly embrace food.
Ooh, I love that. That sounds similar to a quote from one of my favorite Pixar movies, Ratatouille. Do you ever see that one?
I love that film.
Yeah. Chef Gusteau, he says, anyone can cook. I think he says, yeah. And then at the end of the movie, the chef, the food critic, Anton Ego, says, Not everyone can become a great artist, but a great artist can come from anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Which I love. I love that quote. So I have one more question for you. We are talking right now in the midst of an unprecedented global pandemic. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called the COVID-19 pandemic. So what are some predictions or trends that you see coming out of the pandemic, and how do you see it affecting the future of cannabis in the long term, if at all?
The happy-go-lucky time of the Emerald Cup and the Hall of Flowers is probably behind us now, and that camaraderie of passing a joint around between friends is, it's been 6 months since I've done that, and I feel strangely about it today, that social aspect. So that's kind of gone too, and going into dispensaries and being being able to pick things out based on your ability of smelling or viewing. Looking at the buds and having the bud tender pick them out and letting you smell it, and that's probably gone too. And so we're looking at more of an automated existence to cannabis. Fortunately, I'm a big proponent of outdoor grown under the sun with natural growing mediums such as biodynamics, the study of Rudolf Steiner, and organic root teas that are used to give pleasure to the soil. My family farm was biodynamic, so when people started working with the Demeter Institute in California doing outdoor grown cannabis under the auspices of Rudolf Steiner's teachings, that got my attention, and those are the people that I wanted to write about and to talk about and to give props about. So that, if anything, their business has greatly improved because they could sell basically everything that they have, almost even private label, by someone who has, I said, a fat pocket and a dream. You too can go into the cannabis industry. But you got to have a fat pocket for that. But things have changed, and things are continue to change, and it's an organic business. You look at what's happened to liquor during the pandemic, and I read the Mark Brown newsletter every morning at 4:30 a.m. when it comes through, and maybe I'm not awake at 4:30, but that's when it comes through, and I see just how terrible things are out there for liquor. So all we can do is hope that maybe liquor people find their way into cannabis and take away some of these stigmas that keep us from going forward.
Are you optimistic about the future of cannabis?
I'm always optimistic about the future. Okay. I have no excuse but to be optimistic. I have ambition like a 16-year-old.
Good. I love that. It's all that bar back work. It kept you young, huh?
Yeah, God, working around young people who are passionate and make food from their heart and to feed people's bellies and serve them the wines that they've never heard of before and give them an experience that they want to come back and tell all their friends. That's what life is supposed to be about. It's not about working for the man. And when I did for 20 years of my life, and the cube getting smaller and smaller and smaller until I finally was able to find what it was that I was looking for.
Totally. And everyone's life moves at a different pace. The movie of everyone's life has a different plot, and it can be easy, I think, especially for young people, to sort of feel like they're running out of time.
Oh my God.
That they need to make shit happen now, or it's not going to happen.
What they should do is start saving now. Don't be like me. They should start saving. Magic of compound interest.
Hot tip. Yes, indeed.
Compound interest. You can take that, put away $10,000 a year. You'll be a multimillionaire. Listen to me.
There it is. You heard it first. You heard it here from Warren. Listen up, kids.
Just something away every month. It's amazing what it becomes.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You have to say IRA on it. It doesn't have to say college plan. It could say when I'm 60 years old, I'm going to dip into this. one of the things that I did do when I was a kid, so for someone who may not want to save, they should buy a case of vintage port in half bottles and save, and don't open up any of it for 21 years.
Oh, okay.
So that's something they can do, because they could sell that thing and make a hell.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Port, you hear it first. Vintage port, not Madeira, even though it might be sexier, but vintage.
There it is. There's your hot tip of the day, y'all. And if you stuck around this long, then you're welcome for all the secrets here that we are divulging.
That's right.
Well, Warren, man, this was an awesome conversation. I thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation with me. And I thank you even more so because we didn't mention this, but we were scheduled to do this last week, but you have experienced some weather over there in New Jersey, power outages and everything. So,
and we didn't get it back until when did I get back? Friday. It was a drag. I mean, in Charleston, I didn't have it for over a month, but here it was. I'm just older. I guess I like AC more.
Sure. And everything is safe. You're good. Everyone's
good.
All right.
I had a chance to clean out the refrigerator with vinegar and water, and it smelled like a brand new machine.
Love it. None of that truffle smell, huh?
Oh, not in this house.
Not in this house. I love that. Well, good, man. I you know what? I'm really glad that everyone is okay. That all of your things are safe. Safety is definitely the number one priority now more than ever. And coming from Michigan, I know about tornado threats and the damage that they can do. And so I thank you for being open to rescheduling so soon after that happened to you.
Beautiful. I'm the one who's honored to be participating on your show, because I can always look back on it and say, I do a lot of these podcasts, but this is really one that dug just a little bit deeper.
Well, awesome. I'm glad to hear that, man. It was an absolute pleasure. Before we go here, where can our listeners find you online and find the work that you're doing and keep up with you?
Well, the first thing is I'm cocktailwhisperer.com, where they can find me on Forbes Vices by putting in my last name on the search bar, Bobrow, Bobrow. By the way, you said it perfectly. It's most mangled. And then they can find me on Instagram with my name, Warren Bobrow, Bobrow again. On Twitter, which is probably not such a great place to see me because I'm more politically motivated and vocal. So if you don't like that, don't go there. After my name, there's a number 1. So it's Warren Bobrow with 1. Let's see. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. All the the usual suspects. And social media really does work for me because it levels the playing field, because you never really know who you're speaking to, and it could be the CEO or it could be their PR or who knows. It's anything that's free is fun.
True that. No doubt. Well, Warren, thank you again, man, for taking an hour and a half out of your day. I really, really appreciate you sitting down and having this conversation with me and sharing more about your experience, man. I really appreciate it.
Wonderful. An honor. It's really an honor.
Oh, the honor is all mine, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. My thanks again to Warren Bobrow for joining me. If you are a member of the cannabis community and have a story you want to share with us, we would love to hear from you. You can reach the show at hashitout@trichomes.com. You can help others find the show by taking a moment to subscribe to the podcast and write a review. You can also join the discussion with industry insiders and get your voice heard by joining the community at trichomes.com and following us on all social media. Hash It Out is produced by David Fortin and presented by trichomes.com. I'm RJ Balde. Thanks for listening.